Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. This whole week has been Dungeons and Dragons movies since the new one comes out at the end of this week. And this one is a little bit of a sidestep here, as we are going to be doing the 1982 adventure drama fantasy Mazes and Monsters. As for your trivia question for today, what adult cartoon series from the late 2000s had an episode that was fully referencing this movie? The answer will be at the end of this video. So, our story for this film starts innocently enough with a poster in the middle of a college cafeteria stating, "Wanted, a mazes and monsters enthusiast who can play at the ninth level and promises never to flunk out or fink out." And this poster is what brings our four main characters together: Robbie, Kate, Daniel, and JJ. Our four characters have a love for the game Mazes and Monsters, which is clearly a variation of Dungeons and Dragons that they've created for this movie. So everything seems to be going just fine with them living their college lives and playing their game until they decide one day to sneak into some old caverns and decide to change from regular tabletop playing to LARPing or live action role play. Now, in these caverns, they've got all sorts of riddles and fake monsters to deal with, until unfortunately, the character of Robbie has a psychotic break. And so now, not only does he have really odd visions and dreams, but now he's starting to see monsters in real life. And it even gets to the point where he decides to try and take his own life because he can't decipher what's real and what's fantasy anymore. This ridiculous story is based off the novel of the same name, Mazes and Monsters by Rona Jaffe. Now, the story for Mazes and Monsters actually comes from two sources. Number one was the satanic panic that was happening during the late 70s and early 80s, where it was believed that Dungeons and Dragons caused people to worship Satan. The secondary source comes from a real life event with a Michigan State University student named James Dallas Egbert, who made his way into the steam tunnels of his college, was apparently trying to set up playing Dungeons and Dragons down there, but actually committed suicide, and supposedly it was because of Dungeons and Dragons that he did it. Now, here's some interesting trivia involving this film. JJ, for some odd reason, wears multiple hats throughout the film. In fact, he wears 8 different hats and changes them out 14 times. The World Trade Center, which does appear in this film and actually has a few scenes that are recorded there, was built in 1973, so it wasn't even fully 10 years old by the time that they filmed this movie. Mazes and Monsters is actually Tom Hanks' first starring role in a film. He had just finished the series Bosom Buddies with Peter Scolari. Unfortunately, he's really the only cast member that really made something of himself after this film. Although Murray Hamilton was also in this film, and of course will never not be the mayor from Jaws 1 and 2. In my own opinion, Mazes and Monsters is a movie that pretty much everyone should see at least once, especially if you were ever a fan or are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons. It'll probably amuse you at least a little bit. Now, the movie did start filming in the late summer of 1982 and was released in December of that same year, which really shows you they didn't really put too much time and effort into it. And unfortunately, even the star power of Tom Hanks couldn't save this movie. So I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. As for the trivia question from the beginning of the video, what adult cartoon series from the late 2000s had an episode that was fully referencing this movie? In the animated series Code Monkeys, there's an episode called Todd Loses His Mind, where in it, Todd is playing an RPG and he is having trouble being able to tell the difference between reality and fantasy. The funny part is the RPG is called Pardo, which is the name of Tom Hanks' character Robbie's character in Mazes and Monsters. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there is a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.